I want to introduce you very quickly to, what do we have here? Graphite pencils. So the reason I have a whole set, and I just picked 5 of them here, they have little numbers and letters. Now, if you don't have these, that's fine. You most likely have a number 2, a yellow number 2 pencil. That number 2 means something. So I want to explain to you very quickly what that means. So if you have a set of pencils, and if you have paper, what I want you to do is grab, if you have one, a pencil that has a letter H on it. So in my case, I have a 2H. What does 2H mean? So I'm going to write up here 2H, and you barely see it. It's so light and so hard, and that's what the H means. The H stands for hardness. So very, very easily, we can deduct that harder means lighter. And we're going to figure that out. So I should mention a couple of things. I don't want to go too fast. We're going to explore just very quickly what our pencils can do. So if you only have one pencil, you can still do this. What I really, really want you to focus on today, excuse me, is how you hold a pencil. So if you're drawing with this grip, and some of us have this grip, but it's usually close to the tip, it's called a tripod grip. It's for writing. So what we want to do today is draw. Now notice the difference when I hold my pencil like this and I try to draw a line from here to here. I have to move my whole, almost my elbow. I could use my wrist, but then it becomes a little curve. Now when I extend my grip, and I like to hold it as far back as you can hold it, that tells you how confident you are with your mark making. The longer you hold the pencil, it becomes almost just in the fingers. So your axis and your range of movement becomes, I could even go off the table here. If I were to move my arm or my hand the way I was moving before to do this line, look what happens. It goes way off the table. So it's in this holding the pencil, holding the tool. And I know, like for cooking, the way you hold a knife, you wouldn't hold it like this. You would hold it, like you're supposed to. You put your fingers on the side that's supposed to be. If you hold a hammer, it's meant to be used in a way. So for your pencil, I want you to, if you're right-handed, left-handed, you're just going to take your index finger and your middle finger, and you're going to place the pencil as long as you can. Try this. Remember, it's trying, testing, see how it goes. It's going to feel a little awkward at first, but the more you practice it, that's what we're here for. And then you're just going to place your thumb right on top of that. Now, the first thing you notice is how much pressure you can put on it. So if your fingernails are becoming white, loosen up. So you want to almost hold it to the point where it can almost fall off your hand. And you want to make sure, that's the key, that you control the pressure you're putting on the pencil. Pressure, I mean the way you're squeezing where you're holding. Here you have almost no control over it. And if you've ever done this drawing and your hand starts hurting, it hurts when you write. It's that you're applying pressures that eventually become other problems. Then your wrist starts hurting, then your elbow, and then you just don't want to do it. So it's very easy, just holding it like this. And going back to the pencils here. 2H, my lightest pencil. I'm going to start just literally, I call it caressing the paper. Now I'm going up and down, vertical lines. I want to see if I can show you here better. So if you could see that, very good. Notice my grip. Notice my motion. I barely am moving just the last little part of my finger, not even my entire finger. There we go. And I could easily do one of two things. Number one, I could stay on that same exact part of the paper and I could go over and over and over and over and over. So if I were to count up and down times, notice how it's automatically getting darker. this little area here is getting darker. Now I know it's a little hard to see on camera because of the lightness of this pencil, and that there's a reason why we would use a 2H, because we want light lines. And usually it's foundational, usually it's to set us up with the sketch, and then we build on top of those layers with darker pencils. So I was mentioning, you start very light. You could stay on the same area and saturate it, or you could begin to apply a little more pressure. So I want you to test all of them. No pressure. Well, Luis, when I don't put pressure, I barely even put marks. Well, that's amazing. How light can you go? How light can you go? That's it's one of those little games you can play. How light can I go? How light can I make my 2H? And then the other thing you want to do is, how dark can it go? How dark? I play this game. How light can you go? And how dark can you go? All I'm shifting here is pressure. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more. Two things. Shifting the pressure I'm applying on the tip of the pencil where I'm holding it, and the number of times I'm spending on that little part of the paper. So there we have it. Now, the one thing you would want to take this exercise further, if you have the time, you want to, oh wait, I want to practice this more. This feels good. I know where this can go. It would go here. Let me see, focus. There we go. It would, forget about this. It would start as light. I'm having trouble with this focus now. There we go. Apologies. There we go. So I would want to take an entire row, and I would want to start from very... what's going on here? I'm going to have to zoom out just a little bit more. Keep my hand here so it focuses somewhere. It's so light. These pencil markers are so light. So you want to take this... Sorry, give me just 1 second. There we go. And you want to take this from lightest possible and take your time. This would take anywhere from 5, 10, 15 minutes, maybe even an hour, where you could just take this pencil and make sure there's no paper between the lines. And you're going to bring it gradually from the lightest possible all the way gradually until the darkest possible. And darkest possible, I'm applying the most pressure. At this point, I'm actually wanting to get closer and closer to the tip. And you can do that. You can actually begin to move this grip from back here, and you gradually begin to move your hand up, and you can even do it right at the tip here. That's fine, as long as you're using this underhand grip. Now, underhand grip is this one, where you have that range of motion. It also can become overhand grip. So your fingers under the pencil, and I mean these, and then here, over the pencil. So if you feel more comfortable doing it this way, then that's fine as well. And what you want to do is find that comfort zone. Oh, this feels right. This is how I would use this tool. So jumping...
Are you resting your arm at all, or is it resting it on the table or paper? The rest of your arm?
Well, I am working on a flat table. Good point. Okay. And I did not see who asked that one.
Mary. Sorry.
Thank you, Mary. So we have anchor points. If I were working on an easel, meaning the paper is parallel to my eyesight, then I'm probably working from my shoulder. I have nowhere to rest my arm. Because I'm working on a table, and maybe sometimes we have table easels where you could rest. So that is very important. How much are you leaning on your elbow or on your wrist? Or sometimes what I find myself doing more is my little pinky finger is what holds it. So you don't see it because I rest, instead of resting the thick part here of the bottom of my hand, which would smudge, to rest my hand instead of my wrist, I would find myself doing this, putting the back of my pinky or the tip of my pinky just to give me a little anchor point like this as I move my pencil around. And that's one way. So that's what I do most. So if you see me, I'm actually off the table, so my hand is up in the air, or I have a little pinky. Sometimes I go to the wrist, when you need that a little extra anchoring, basically. So really quickly, go from 2H. This one is HB. Now you immediately notice a big difference. From 2H, which was ultralight and a little harder, we went to HB, which is still H, hard, with a little B, which means black. And you also feel a little bit softer. But the thing you notice immediately is when you try to go ultralight, you're automatically going a little darker than your average 2H. So I'm going really light, and you're already seeing it better than any of the darker 2Hs. And that's the way graphite is processed. Graphite has mixtures of clays and other minerals in it, which compressed make your lead harder, lighter, or softer, darker. So the last question is, how light can I go? And then also, how dark can I go? And notice I could add a little bit of pressure. And I'm using mostly the side of my pencil, but I'm really at the tip of it. And as you see my hand here, there's my pinky. So I'm leaning on the knuckle of my pinky almost. And not the actual knuckle, but like the second knuckle. And squeezing a little bit hard on the level of pressure with I'm holding it. From HB, I'm going to move to B. Now this is the one we're most used to, the number 2 pencil. So these numbers and these letters mean something. The higher the number with the following letter, so in case of H, if you have a 2H, 4H, the 4H is twice as hard and light as the 2H. A 6H would be even harder and lighter than a 4H, and so on and so forth. So 2B is going to be softer and darker than an HB. Same process. I'm going to try to be as light as possible, and it is amazing how getting to know your pencils. Look how dark my lightest 2B is. And this is almost with zero pressure. I'm just literally touching my thumb where it could fall off of my fingers. So there's zero pressure. It's just the weight of the pencil almost. And of course you have to touch it so you can control the movement. But in that squeezing, feeling how much pressure you're putting on the pencil, that's the key. That's the key. And as I gradually do one of two things, saturate an area or add pressure. Now then you could add pressure and saturate an area, which is what I'm doing here. And look how dark that gets right away. So it absolutely is way darker than the HB, but not much. And how light can I go? How dark can I go? Just to demo, go from 2B, and I'm going to jump to 4B. And just, oh gosh, sorry. There we go. Just by writing the type of pencil, you could see the gradual darkening and softening. I hope you can feel, if you're working through these pencil sets, if you have at least 2 or 3 different ones, that you could feel the hardness and softness and the variation of that. Not just the actual darkening, but the softness of the pencil. Some of them are a little creamier, and you'll feel with the lighter ones, harder ones, sometimes you feel like you're drawing with a metal point, like a nail or a needle. And obviously, one big point. How dark can I go? As far as right before I rip the paper, because we have to consider the paper. That's why I love using that word, caressing the paper, and getting a feel of how much pressure, how much saturation, how much repetition you need to create those beautiful lines that we're going to do. Need 1 second to switch a battery. Okay. So very quickly, I'm going to go ahead and show you, again, same grip. How light can you go? And I really test myself. If I measured in pounds how much pressure I'm putting on this pencil with my fingers, and I just think about that, it is, I don't think, there's no way I could go any lighter in terms of pressure. And as I begin to just squeeze my thumb and feel that little bit of pressure that I'm putting on it, I could begin to see how the pencil, the marks, respond. And I'm trying to stay consistent, not oversaturating an area. So I'm just moving along, making sure there's no space between the lines that I'm drawing. So I'm covering all the paper. And what I mean by that is this. When you do this type of line, you want to go slow enough so you're covering an area like this. And you're almost stepping over the line. So I'm going to do it in slow motion. You're going down, up, and you're almost retracing the space of those lines where there's no space of paper between them. Sometimes we do, very used to it, we want to go faster, so we're doing this. And we have that little bit of light and paper that comes through the lines. So you want to make sure the softer, and we discover another very important thing, which is pace. Now, your pace may be this pace. You want to work like that? That's fine. As long as you can do and manage the pressure and the saturation that you're expecting, and it's working, then great. Some of us, we want to work at this pace, and we almost feel like we need a ruler. So until every line is just perfectly vertical and no space between them, and that's just a matter of personality. So find your comfort zone in terms of pressure, in terms of pace, and now in terms of what we call here value, which is the lightness or darkness of a line. So notice how my 4B is going to go really dark over here. So I'm adding the maximum amount of pressure I can, and now I'm saturating that area by going over and over and over. And there we have it. So notice the difference just with these 4 pencils. The range from ultralight all the way to, I have a 6B here. And my 6B, oops. See, that's how soft it is. The tip, the little tiny, the very tip of it just broke off. You have to be very, very careful with this one. But this, and you could even go further than a 6B. I've seen 9B, which is almost charcoal at that point. But that's the only way you get there. If you want this dark, that's why you would select the right pencil at the right time. So if you were sketching, you wouldn't want to start with this one and then be able to add a lighter one on top of it. You would structure your drawing so you can follow some of the rules, which are from biggest to smallest, from simplest to more complex, and from lightest to darkest. And I'll repeat those over and over today.